Hello.
Hey, welcome back to
What the
the Deaf
Deaf?
podcast.
Whew, wow. What a journey it's been. This episode, we're going to really reflect on our adventure through making this podcast and all the things we've learned and just the journey overall.
Yeah, and how we ultimately decided to do this podcast. And it was from our trip in Ireland, where you and we went out drinking and we just had these conversations with hearing people and a lot of questions that they were asking us just in that moment. We're like, you know what? Let's do a podcast. And fast forward to today. I mean, look, we're on our 10th, 11th episode of our own podcast and just that whole journey and what it was like. It was so much fun.
Yeah, and we had no prior experience with filming or editing or voiceover. All those, there were so many things that went into it. Closed captioning, all those small details that we don't think about. We really had to roll up our sleeves to learn them all. And what an experience it was. I remember when we first started, how we wanted to approach this podcast and what our goals were and how would we break down the different topics and what we wanted to show to our listeners. There were so many different things. We tried so many different approaches to get to this point where we are now.
Originally, we wanted to name this podcast Say What?
Say What? I forgot about that.
Yeah, that. Yeah, we were set. We were like, yes, this is what we want. We were going to name it Say What? And then I think we just went through a lot of different processes throughout this, and we got different feedback from our families and hearing people's perspective and how that term Say What could sound like we're rejecting. And so we're like, you know what? No, we want this to be a home for everyone. We want it to be a positive, welcoming vibe for our listeners. And so we went back and forth for a long time. And then finally we found the brand that we really,
What the Deaf.
Yeah, that spoke to us.
We really did. And from there, we started to build a team of people with our podcast and our brand. And we recruited your sister. Yes. How did that make you feel? So for you listeners, if you didn't know, Carly's voice is her sister,
Jenny. I'm really blessed to have a sister who is willing to invest time and do this work and do the voiceover. And I know it's not easier. Her career has been interpreting, but this voiceover is a totally different experience for her. And I can only imagine she's not just interpreting what I'm saying, but she's also putting on my character, my personality. She's matching the tone to my signing right now and just really diving into my character so that the listeners can really listen to me and not my sister. And so I think that's a really fun adventure for her, I hope. But I'm just really honored to have a sister who knows me the best out of so many people and who can really channel into my personality. She's known me since I was little, obviously.
And I still remember our first episode that didn't air. We realized that our signing made sense, but to voice that over, it was hard. And again, don't forget, ASL is a completely different language. And we were like, oh, a lot of the listeners are only listening to us and not watching us. So we really had to channel our sign language to make it more clear to our auditory audience. And that was a learning curve.
It was challenging.
Yeah, challenging.
It was so challenging. I remember when there were a few questions that were asked from the first few episodes about the captioning matching the audio and not our signing. And so they asked, hey, the audio doesn't make sense or the captioning. And I'm like, no, listen, we had to really sit down with my sister and have that discussion on how we want to interpret that into our audio for our listeners so it sounds right for the podcast, because sign language is totally different. And so it was a challenge for us. We had to discuss how we wanted to add the captioning to make sure that our content of our signing doesn't get lost, but it makes sense for hearing people too. So it was an amazing journey.
Yeah, it really was. And for Our signing, I still remember the first thing we had to learn was to sign slower.
No, I don't think I've learned still.
Sorry, Jenny.
It's so hard. I think the first 3 episodes, we literally had to open a whole bottle of wine so that we can unwind
Whew.
and be able to get into the groove. But no, it still doesn't work for me. I still sign really fast.
But luckily, when we finish recording our episode, we take all that video and you edit it. And let's just say editing has been very interesting. And we had to learn a whole new program of how to edit all the footage. And oh man.
But luckily, we're able to do this in one take.
Whew.
Usually, sometimes we have to take 2 different takes, but usually it's just one take, we're done, and it makes editing a lot easier. I can't imagine editing 3 or 4 takes and taking this clip and
No,
this
plus
clip
audio?
and putting it together. No, thank you. So for the audio part, I always think it's so funny how a lot of hearing people typically struggle with captioning their videos because they say it takes too much time or it's not for their audience. But a deaf girl edits the audio on this podcast. And so many people will say, oh, your podcast sounds amazing. And I'm like, thanks.
Hey, thanks.
Do you realize it's a deaf girl that edits this, right?
So, for those listeners who don't know, I actually voice over for myself. And I work with Jenny and we sit in the recording booth and then 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours of just recording our episodes. And when we finish that, I'll take all of that and edit it 4 hours worth of audio and I'll reduce it down to a 25-minute video. So, whew.
Well, I'm over here do you need some water? Do you want a drink? Some food?
No. This girl actually answers all the questions from emails and girl, we make a good team.
Yeah, but it's a really weird experience for me because the content of this is mainly for an auditory audience. So I feel like this is my message and this is our production, but yet I really don't have full access to it, if that makes any sense. Because again, I can't hear what I'm saying. I know what I'm saying, but a lot of you guys just, plug in your headphones and listen.
And many people, our close friends or family members, say, wow, your sister sounds like you.
Right.
Or your sister is amazing at voiceover. And I'm wondering, how did that make you feel?
I don't know. Mind blown. At first when they said oh, she sounds just like you. And I'm like, I got to a point where I'm like, Sarah, what do I really sound like?
And I had to think for a minute. What does Jenny sound like? And I'm like, oh, Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah.
That's the only person I could think of in my mind.
When you sent me that, I was like, okay, now I got to go stalk her on Instagram. And I'm like, I like her. All right. I sound pretty good.
And it isn't until we finish our closed captioning that you can actually see what your sister says.
Right. So pretty much I just sign, let you guys do all the magic work. And then we get the closed captioning together. And then I see it and I'm like, oh, that's how it's worded. And honestly, I was impressed with how you and Jenny worked so hard to make sure that it's translated in such a perfect way. And it sends the message that you and I wanted to in the first place. So yeah.
Right. But it all starts with us and our signing and our words.
Right. It's ours.
Even though there's voiceover that translates it to English, but really it's us and our words that we use. And it's really amazing to see it all come together.
And do you remember when we did our first few episodes, I was very picky. I was like, I want to say this, these are the words I want to say. And I was very, I wanted to make sure I had a voice in what the audience was going to hear. And then after a few takes, I'm like, you guys did amazing work, to the point where I'm like, I'll just wait for the captioning to come out. Wow.
And we don't follow a script. We just come up with a topic based on some of your questions that you submit or a topic that we want to discuss. And if we want to talk about that, we're like, okay, let's sit down and let's go.
So that's why I always feel like, when people send in comments and say, oh, you shouldn't follow a script. I'm like, it's not.
We promise.
I swear it's not. It's our friendship. And it just, it just flows so well. And that's why I'm like, oh, thanks. But FYI, it's not a script.
What's been the most fun about this podcast for you so far in season 1?
Doing this with you. Number one.
Aw, I didn't pay her to say that. I didn't, I promise.
Okay. But no, seriously. I mean, I am just fortunate enough to do this fun journey with a best friend. Not many people get that opportunity, and I do. Plus, my sister and your sister, who's had a part with the podcast platform. And so just building that beautiful relationship and teamwork, that's my favorite. But overall, the concept of doing the podcast, I think I've learned so much about sound. I mean, there's so many things that I did not realize, like watching you edit. You worked so hard with 2 audio takes. And I'm like, I don't get it. So I asked you, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, see you next week.
And you're like, okay, because your sister has 2 different sounds. Okay. One says, see you next week. And then the other one says, see you next week. And I'm like, what? And then I see the different fluctuations and the takes and how you can edit that together. And I'm like, okay, I'm officially mind blown because that's how sound is. Like, okay.
And I tried to compare it with signing. So sometimes in sign language, we could sign small and cute, or we can sign really big. That was the best way I can describe sound for you. And that was fun. But really, I loved how we thought our podcast would just do one little thing. But our podcast became so different than what we expected. Our podcast really bridged our families together. Your sister with you and my sister with me. And we really were able to create that connection again. And I love that family aspect of our podcast. And our goals were really to get through to our hearing audience and inspire them. But we've done so much more. All the listeners who submitted their comments and questions and responses, it really made me realize, oh, this is why we're doing this. We are reaching out to so many people who have very similar stories, and they thought they were the only people that experienced what we've experienced. And for them to share their stories and journeys, it really inspired us to continue doing this and continue to unpack and continue to be raw and have fun along the way and stay on that positive side of everything.
Yeah. Beautiful. And it brought a lot of beautiful, healthy discussions with us, I think. I know on camera we look happy and perfect and it's easy, but behind the scenes, we really had a lot of time where we sat down and we laughed and we cried and we had heart-to-heart discussions and really unpacked together. And that's something that I never expected to happen.
Right. And comparing the first episode to now, I've seen our growth throughout the entire podcast from episode 1 all the way till now. And Nia Sarah and how I'm learning about my confidence and who I am. It's really a beautiful thing. So this podcast, I thought was going to help the listeners. No, it actually helped me as a human being and to really explore the many sides of my identity and my personality. It's been an amazing, tough, but fun journey.
Yeah. We literally cannot do this without the listeners either. All of their questions, all of their support and their interactions with us, letting us know that we're not alone and they're not alone and connecting that way. We've reached out to so many people that I never thought we would. And it's just really heartwarming.
Yeah. And the variety of people that we reached out to as well. I never thought in my wildest dreams that we would make this big of an impact. But thanks to you, the listeners, for all of your open-mindedness and your open heart and your thoughts and support. It's so inspiring to see that and what more will come from it. And we've had a lot of different experiences throughout the podcast, and we started getting interviewed by wonderful news outlets and having opportunities to share our stories on a huge platform like the news.
Definitely. So what's your funniest moment doing this podcast?
I think after every episode, my leg falls asleep. You guys don't see that, but every episode, I am literally like, ow, 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 shake it out, shake it out. That's probably the funniest thing, not caught on camera. I mean, I swear, I think if we compiled all the bloopers, we'll have like hours and hours of comedy, just saying. So that's probably my funniest moment with me, at least.
Yeah. For me, again, it goes back to sound. I remember when you and my sister were recording and I was in the house and your dad was like, don't flush the toilet. I'm like, flushing makes that loud of a noise to the point where while recording, you can hear it. Holy shit. Okay. So I'm like tiptoeing, and just like the small things. And it's amazing for me to really like acknowledge and see how sensitive sound can be while recording.
I remember your sister and I were recording one day and her son was creeping down the stairs.
My nephew.
Yeah, your nephew was creeping down the stairs. And Jenny was like, hang on, I got to stop recording because I hear my son coming down the stairs. And he literally cracked open the door and was like, Mom, are you done? And Jenny said, only come down the stairs if it's an emergency. And he's like, it is an emergency. I knocked over your water. It was so cute. And again, I don't hear those kinds of sounds. Even one time my dad came into the recording booth and said, hey, we got to stop because the gardeners are using the leaf blowers to blow the streets and the lawn. And I'm like, but I didn't hear anything. Oh, okay. Again, I guess it just happens when you're deaf, but.
And the fact that you can't even record at your house because there's so much noise outside, like airplanes and all that. I love it when your dad's always like, oh, stop while you're doing your auditioning. He'd be like, stop, airplane. I'm like, oh, I heard that one. Like, what? Like airplanes and
small things, walking,
trucks and motorcycles that are driving outside. It's just like, wow.
Even a sheet of paper, when I have to hold a paper with a script on it and I have to move it, I have to hold my breath and slowly turn the sheet of paper.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm afraid to make noise.
The struggle is real.
So much fun, though, throughout this whole process. Literally, finding this setup and the lights and the camera. I remember we used your old camera to film and it would cut the footage in like 3 different parts or it was shut off for no reason. And we were always like, no, it was such a good take. Oh, we have to re-record. No. But then we finally invested in a better camera. But this camera, we still can't see ourselves. We don't know if it's actually recording or not.
Remember that one time when we were filming and we felt so good and we realized it's not recording. We're like, all right, let's drink some whiskey before we try this again. Oh, yeah. But it has been fun and I wouldn't change it for anything.
And in the end of the day, it's always worth it. Just, yeah.
I also remember when we had to order the audio equipment and we ordered this big circle thing. Again, I'm deaf over here, so I had no idea. And she's like, yeah, it's what was it? Like
the circle. Oh, the pop thing for the microphone. So when you're recording the audio, you need a mesh screen over the microphone to prevent harsh sounds coming through, like the T's or the SH sounds or whatever sounds that hit the microphone really hard, it prevents that. And
so I got it and I'm like, ooh, what's this? What is this for? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when we were researching for microphones, I'm like, Emily, my sister, I'm not sure what to use.
So many of you have asked if we are going to be interviewing people and what our podcast will look like in the future.
Yeah. So season 1 has been a wild journey of just talking and opening up that conversation and talking about topics that many people wanted to know about and that many people don't talk about. And we're going to take a little bit of a hiatus for a brief time to get things ready for season 2, which hopefully will be us interviewing people, many different types of people, like hearing parents, actors, directors, people that we worked with. We have a list of people, and now we just have to go back to the drawing board and figure out specific details to make this the best for you listeners.
Yes. And with interpreters and
voiceover.
Yeah. So that'll be another fun adventure for us.
Right. I'm still trying to figure out for the interviews, the microphone situation. When I sign and like start hitting myself, will the microphone pick it up? I'm curious about that. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yep. And that reminds me, I remember when we were talking about voiceovers and who was going to be voicing for you. And I suggested you Simcom, and you were very hesitant about it. Again, not Simcom, but you would just voice for yourself. And you were very unsure. And after having done the season, have your feelings changed about it? Are you more confident?
Yeah. And I think, again, it's who I am. It's my identity and what I want to represent. It's me. And who better to voice over for me than myself if I can? So it's been, it gave me a confidence as an actor too, and to have fun with it and to practice and to continue to work on that. But yeah, it's been fun and I've been really enjoying it. And having the opportunity to voice for myself, it's extremely powerful. And who knows, maybe in the next season when we interview, I might be sitcoming with people that we interview, or who knows, we'll see where life takes us with that journey. But I'm so excited to be exploring it and experimenting and having fun with it.
And I think it's such a beautiful thing to show that there are so many different layers within our deaf community. You know, hearing you be able to speak for yourself and voice while others rely on interpreters and identifying those. And so letting the listeners listen firsthand and see that there are really different layers within our community.
Yeah. And the beautiful layers within our community, and that everyone, like you said before, wonderfully, every deaf individual has their own beautiful journey of life and identity. Again, this podcast really brought me out of my own shell and brought me out of my own insecurities, and having this healthy conversations about all these topics. It really made an impact for me and for you, I'm sure too.
Definitely. So if you guys have any ideas, any thoughts on where you want to see our podcast in the future, who we should interview, please feel free to contact us at questions@whatthedeaf.com.
And please follow us on Instagram at whatthedeaf for all the updates. And please subscribe to this podcast and rate, review, comment. We would love to see all your wonderful comments and journeys too.
Again, thank you for all of your support. We really appreciate it more than you'll ever know.
We love you all. Oh, also, my foot's legit asleep, like literally. Okay, bye.
It's okay.